So we would like to invite Marianne for the next talk. She is Associate Professor in Human-Centered Design and Digitalization at the University of Oulu, and she is the Vice Leader of the Interactive Research Unit. She is going to speak on talk on she is going to talk on empowering AI.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. So let's see. I share my slides. Do you see my slides now properly?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So my topic is empowering AI, and I have to tell you, yesterday I was talking with my husband about this, my presentation here, and he's also on technology field, and we had a very interesting discussion, and I have to say that I'm still thinking, what is actually empowering AI? So I don't promise to give you kind of definite answers here, but thoughts. And I would say that we are sort of on the way towards understanding what empowering AI can mean. So something about my background, because I think that you don't know me. So I have studied over 10 years children's participation in technology development. So with focus on technology development for children, with children, and also by children. And now also I'm interested in intelligent data intensive technologies at workplace and inclusive AI. And participation, empowerment, and inclusion, they are the key words generally for my research. And also my associate professorship, I have a tenure. Anyway, on this University of Oulu profiling project, GenJet, which is related to co-evolution of human capabilities and intelligent technologies. And I think it kind of colors my thinking a lot. But on the other hand, why I am in that project working for that is because my research have been about those topics for a long time. So why talking about empowerment in relation to AI or technology in general? So there are lots of analysis of trends related to our future and basically different assumptions on what our future will be like. One central trend is that technology will become an embedded enabler in everything. So it will be even more a part of our society and everyday life. And there are some predictions that in about 10 years, in 2030, the world will feel even smaller than it feels now when new wireless technologies, telecommunications network generations are coming to life. So we are now living the time of 4G in the wireless networks, and 5G infrastructure, it's currently under building, at least in many European countries and elsewhere. And researchers in our university, we are already working for 6G. And there are predictions that with 6G in about 10 years, 90% of people in the world will be able to have access to the internet, and this trend will involve mobile technology. So what this means is that in the future, there will be highly sophisticated products, systems, and they are meant to make people's lives easier and provide convenience to all of us, as everything is going to be automated. Well, we will see what happens, but anyway. And IoT devices and sensors controlled by AI will be important part of our lives, integrated part of environment when the 6G technology has penetrated like every part of the world. So this provides massive opportunities for both individuals, but also businesses and societies, but also it sets a huge pressure to technology developers to develop technologies that do not deepen the digital divide, but instead provide everybody equal opportunity to use them, and also that those technologies are secure and they can be trusted. So it's not so clear anymore in who in 2030 or even now has the power. So it's not only like states who have power, but it's also companies, they can be regions, communities and transnational organizations. And if you think about the situation now, you might probably be able to name something right away when you start thinking about this. So key questions here are: who will own the data? Who will get to decide on the technology? And who will set the rules and regulations? There's a huge pressure to the education system to provide equal opportunities. The population is all the time more diverse. There are different backgrounds, opportunities, and habits, new technological innovations we don't even foresee yet. So what we need in the future and also already now is informed, reflective, empowered people who have enough knowledge through their education that they are able to reflect what in technology use is for their own best, but also for others, the whole society. And they are also willing to take responsibility when they see that something needs changing. So it's a cliche that children are our future, but of course it's really so. So that is why we need to carefully think what kind of futures we are building for children and how we can help children to build their own digital futures. So currently, in the major ethical guidelines for AI, children are mentioned only kind of cursorily, but we still know that children are all the time more and more using AI or are somehow affected by AI systems in their everyday life. When you think about robotic toys or voice assistants, so AI can be, at least for some children, it can be an important part of their lives already. And there are attempts that to consider how children should be taken into account in AI development, but the viewpoint to AI, it's still mostly a adult viewpoint. So some visions already exist, like this policy guidance on AI for children. It's a draft funded by UNICEF and actually Finnish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So, but these visions, they should translate to practice. And translating to practice, it starts from understanding. Now, empowerment, it's a buzzword nowadays. So you can see people talk a lot about empowerment and use it very freely. But I think that many of us don't really think and maybe understand what it means. And they can mean very different things also when they talk about empowerment. So I will next go quickly through some forms of empowerment and how to link those in the context of AI development and use. And also in the context of technology development and use more general. So, but before going to actual empowerment, some quick words about power dynamics that are behind empowerment. So they are typically related to social hierarchies between people. Somebody or some group of people has power over another person or group in technology access, use, and design. For example, when we think about citizens and government, the power hierarchy there shows when the government has power over citizens, whether the citizens have access to, for example, technology infrastructure or not. For some reason or some other, the government has not taken care that of some technology infrastructure availability for the citizens. But on the other hand, there are also those smart cities where citizens have access to the best network quality. But then there are these rural areas where the network quality is much worse or non-existent. So there is this power hierarchy between citizens and governments. Then there are also technology designers and technology users, and I think that everybody who is in working with technology design, they know what I'm talking about, because the designers, they make the final decisions on what kind of technology there is available for use. And then we can take as an example, parents and children. There is a very clear power hierarchy. We probably are all very aware of that in our everyday situations. But when taking to technology viewpoint, then, for example, adults or parents can deny their children use of mobile phones or access to the internet, or the parents, they just say that, no, we don't need that technology. We are not going to buy that. And obviously, children don't have very much to say to that. So it's very much about decision-making power over somebody else. Who says the final word? So going to empowerment. So empowerment is such a topic that has been studied on many different fields and many different viewpoints. And there's lots of research of empowerment in the context of organizations and their workers, and this research is partly behind what I now present to you, partly from organizational sciences, but it has also been applied to technology design and use. So I go through 5 different forms of empowerment that are one example of how you can approach empowerment in the context of technology design and use. And you can kind of use these forms of empowerment when you plan for empowerment of somebody, or when you try to analyze whether some aim for empowerment exists or not in some effort. So one form of empowerment is motivating people to, for example, working harder, to enjoy their work more or something. So, for example, in company, managers can give some decision-making power for workers, and in the AI context, users can be taken along in the AI development process or given power over some decisions of AI use. Like in what situations, what time of day they use AI. Then there is this functional form of empowerment where the aim is to develop life conditions, improve the life conditions of people. So people are given better tools for their use, like an AI that helps users in their daily tasks, and thus their workload is smaller, for example. And in the democratic form of empowerment, people have the ability to affect decisions that concern them. And when we think about AI, people might have a possibility to decide as a team whether they take the new AI tool into use or not, for example. Then you can take a learning and competence form of empowerment. And I would say that a large part of my research has been related to that, because I've been working with children and schools, so education in general. So this learning and competence form, it's the idea there is that people are given such skills and competencies that help them to flourish in their full potential, participate fully in society, control their destinies. And education in general is like this part of this form of empowerment. And in the context of AI, then, this can mean that people are educated to understand how AI works. They are able to reflect how useful AI is, or for themselves, or for the whole society. And they are even able to drive the development work or create an AI by themselves. So in practice, it means that they have to have learned technology technology development skills like programming, design skills. They also have to have media literacy, digital literacy, and so on. And then there is this critical form of empowerment where the aim is empowering people to challenging the conditions of status quo. So questioning the power dynamics and gaining more power of decision by themselves. So the oppressed are fighting their oppressors. So currently in the USA, the Black Lives Matter movement is one good example of this, and there are many other good examples of how the oppressed are fighting their oppressors. So in this form of empowerment, people should first see to be able. The aim is to make people able to see the oppressing conditions and then to make it possible for them to fight those conditions. And in the case of AI, this fighting could be that in practice that we will challenge the decision-making power of organizations that create AIs, or we demand for changes in what technologies that use AI can do, or we can refuse to use AI at all or any technology. So it's in our hands. So if now I'm talking from the viewpoint of somebody who tries to empower someone else, a technology user or a non-user. So it is in our hands who try to do that. Which form of empowerment we want to seek, or also which form suits best the circumstances. Those are not in any kind of order of importance or any kind of hierarchy. They are just different viewpoints to empowerment. So if we summarize what empowerment in relation to AI or technology in general can be. So it's about opportunities for technology use, having access to information networks and devices, applications. It's about expertise, having technology use skills and capabilities to design and make technology like programming. It's about reflective skills, so that you are able to challenge and evaluate information technology. It's about feeling of meaningfulness. So you experience the ability to influence things as a technology user. And you can also focus on empowerment when you think about it. You can focus on individual people or whole communities. And sometimes to empower individuals, you need to start from empowering communities these individuals belong to. And that is actually one part of current sort of thread in my research related to India, so related to special needs children in India, and how to empower them. We think that to empower these individuals, you really need to empower also the communities around them and the other people, not only those. You shouldn't only focus on those who are like in the center. So the big question, what is an empowering AI then? So I would say that we don't know yet. I don't know yet. Ben Schneiderman talks about technologies that augment, amplify, empower, and enhance humans, and putting people in the center instead of technology. I think that for those who work with user-centered design methods, or for example, participatory design, this is kind of easily understandable. But there are lots of technology developers who don't even have a clear user for the technology they develop. And it can be very challenging for them to consider this viewpoint. So I would talk about 3 different ways of how AI can be empowering. So the technology development process itself is empowering. It takes users somehow along, and the technology that is built it's built for the context. The technology development process kind of considers the values of humans, cultural values or any values of humans and human needs in that context. Okay, so technology development process itself is empowering. Then the technology itself can also support empowerment of humans. And I use the word humans here in purpose. It could be something else, but I didn't want to put their users because I always, when we are talking about users, I always start to think about non-users. And when you talk about empowerment, you really need to think about the non-users too. So let's talk about humans. Okay, so the technology supports empowerment of humans. And I would say that here, this can mean many things, but one very sort of practical everyday thing for HCI people, for example, is that if you design a technology well, then it at least can be empowering. But if, for example, we have a very bad, like simple thing, very bad user interface, it can be quite hard for the technology to be empowering. So it comes actually to quite practical things also, this empowerment. And then I would say as a third thing that the technology use process should support empowerment of humans. And once again, I want to say humans, not users. So the technology opens up opportunities for humans. And instead of forcing humans to sort of certain form set by the technology. So AI that is built for serving humans and not vice versa. So why to talk about children and empowerment and AI? Well, of course, it's very important to empower people of all ages. But I very strongly believe that what you learn young, it will serve you in the future. And if you, because I think that we should be reflective, we should really consider, be able to consider, is this technology, for example, AI, good for me? Is it good for the society? Is it good for the people around me? Is it good for the, whole world? And for that, you should have, you need to have courage, and you also need to have capability to question existing and future solutions, and that is something that should be learned early. So it's important how we see the world. Is the world like all the work finished, unchangeable, or controlled, managed by others, or is the world unfinished, open for changes, I can do it, or even it's my job to change the future? So these kind of mindsets and attitudes are easier to learn young compared to changing your mindsets and attitudes as an adult. And that's why I think that it's important that we discuss also children and empowerment and AI. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. That was, thank you for giving us insight how you're thinking about AI and how AI should be more participatory. What are the different politics involved while building the AI? We have a couple of questions from Aninda. Aninda is asking, what do you think is the most suitable way to gain public trust in regards to the technology being implemented later is truly based on the human needs, not on the political needs?
Yeah, it's a good
tricky
question. Not an easy question, I have to say. I think that at least something that is important is that, well, many things start from education. So the more you understand technology, the easier for you, it is to understand also what is, when it's based on human needs and when not to political needs.
Right.
But
So there's always this challenge. It's not an easy answer, but things start with political and then slowly, in realistic world, I think that's how it works on, but we should first focus on the human needs.
I mean, that is something that I haven't really, I mean, but these political issues, they are of course there, and it's important part of for example, my own research, to consider also when we talk about the wider, putting technology in the wider context, and politics it's there, definitely it's there. It is just that I haven't studied exactly this topic, so no good answers here.
Another
So
question which, so that is asking that when you speak about the user, the thought of non-users come to your mind. But when we talk about the humans, wouldn't the thought of non-humans be also kept in mind for empowering AI?
That's a great question, and that's also something that I was actually also thinking when I was talking, and have been thinking many times. And as I told you in the beginning, that I had basically the same discussion with my husband yesterday, who also challenged me when I talked to him about users and non-users, and I said that I like to think about humans, and he was like, well, what about the non-humans, and what about the cobots, for example, like, you know, robots that work alongside with you, so or animals, or so you open up lots of you open up a plethora of questions when you say that you are not considering users. But I really think that user is such a narrow concept. So we need to talk, it's good to talk about users, but we also need to talk about something else. And what is the good word? I don't know, maybe we need to use many words, not only human or non-human. Yeah.
Right. At this point, there are a couple of more questions, Marianne, which are addressed to you. We could take that, and also to bring the point that we have a 15 minutes break. So we could utilize a break to stretch a little bit. But another question from Ila Sharma is that it's most probably a comment that something to think about in terms of children, and consider them as they are also in some level exposed to technology. Right.
Yeah, it's true. And actually children, when we start to think about children's everyday life, it differs, of course, from country to country and situation to situation. But children actually are very much exposed to technology in their everyday lives. So yes, it's important.
Right. Another question is that empowerment for one could be exploitation for others. So what framework is or must be considered to account whose empowerment? This is crucial because it ultimately shapes goals of the society and might further magnify existing power inequities.
Yeah, I agree. So one thing that we have been recently in our research considering is stakeholder view. So trying to understand who are all the stakeholders who are somehow affected, and maybe who should be affected. So yeah, I agree that that empowerment of somebody can be like non-empowerment for someone else. But yeah, I would say that you just have to, if you are worried, if you are doing like actively doing something, your aim is to empower somebody or some community, then I would say that it's very important to really think about who are all those involved or somehow related.
So, Marianne, thank you. There are a couple of more questions which our audience are asking. It would be lovely if you could stay back and answer them on the Q&A box. Before we move for a break, as we have to sit till 7:35, another around more than 1 hour, more than around 2 hours we have to sit. It would be nice that we could reduce the Zoom fatigue, which we are going to end up. So before everyone goes, we would love to thank all our speakers, and thank you, Marianne, and thank you, Dr. Aurora, for staying here and giving us insightful your research, what you're doing currently.